Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Muindi.
Wow. First of all, what a tribute to Tyson and what an inspiration to all of us. And I know Chris said I was co-founder of Muindi Foundation, but actually that's just in name only. I kind of ran the errands. But my wife back there, she's actually the brainchild of the entire organization. She actually left a high-profile job and decided, like, I want to serve those who are invisible to society. So this is what she's doing on a daily basis, and I'm just there to help how I can. So to Andrea, Culture Shift Labs team, thank you so much for this incredible honor and for putting on what's been an amazing weekend so far. So I've had an opportunity to go since Thursday and through today, and that's been a fantastic time. And then to my fellow honorees, it's such a humbling experience to share this stage with you and inspiring me to even do more. And over the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you the catalyst for driving change around the racial wealth gap and the light bulb moment that happened for me that resulted in the ServiceNow Racial Equity Fund. So think back to 2 years ago, almost to the day. What were you doing, and where were you? My wife, my daughter, and my mother-in-law, they're all here, by the way. I got the village, by the way. I got a table right here and a table over there, so I got the room covered. So we were sitting around watching the video and the coverage of George Floyd's murder. And as a black man, that hit me in a way that others hadn't. I was struck by about how this happened so casually and in broad daylight. And I began to think, what can we do? So we started having a discussion as a family. What can we do to influence change? And as we sat around, we just said, you know what? We gotta get off the sidelines. We can't just sit here and rage watch anymore. We have to do something. So the first thing we decided to do was, hey, we need to go out, we need to raise awareness around racial injustice, and issue a call to action. So we decided to make signs. We went down to protest at San Jose City Hall, which is probably about 15 miles from here. I had never protested anything in my life, at least not publicly anyway. And to be honest, I was also afraid of being out there. But this was no time to be afraid. I had to embrace being uncomfortable. So we went out every Saturday morning for 2 to 3 hours, June through December. Sometimes it would just be the four of us. Other times, our family and friends would join us. But even by December, I was still not comfortable, but that was not the point. But I knew this wasn't going to influence sustainable change. So I began to think about what can I do in my professional capacity. So one of the topics I decided to research was around the racial wealth gap and what are the structural issues that continue for racial wealth disparity over history. So a year before, my wife had actually read the book, The Color of Money, Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap. So I decided to read it. And this book was eye-opening for me. It went in detail over 150 years, all the systemic, the structural issues that resulted in this racial wealth disparity. But this all crystallized for me in a report that Citibank published in September of 2020. So they did a deep dive into the economic cost of black inequality in the US. And they concluded that this inequality had cost the US $16 trillion over 20 years. $16 trillion. And just to give you some perspective, the entire size of the US economy in 2021 was $23 trillion. Think about losing 70% of the US economy. That would be devastating. But I think even more importantly than that, think about the missed opportunity to influence millions and change and transform millions of black lives. And the common thread across the board was the limited or the lack of access to capital, whether it's for home ownership, business loans, and so on. And so this was a light bulb moment for me and my role as treasurer and our focus on capital, whether it's accessing capital or deploying capital. And I saw an opportunity for ServiceNow to leverage its investment portfolio to be a provider of capital to help close the racial wealth gap. And there's a couple areas where I saw opportunities. Providing capital for home ownership, affordable housing, neighborhood revitalization, entrepreneurship. But the part that I really wanted to focus on was on low to moderate income Black communities. So these are the marginalized communities that don't get access to capital, and they often fall prey to unfair lending practices. So armed with this data, I kept thinking, like, okay, I need to make this business case to Gina, our ServiceNow CFO. But I was extremely nervous about it. And I thought, if I make this recommendation, it might be career limiting for me. We don't do this. And so I had a lot of sleepless nights wondering, should I take this to her? My gut kept telling me, this is a case you have to make. And I remember Ken Coleman, I don't know where he is, but I had a call with him one time, and he told me, you have a seat at the table for a reason. And so I decided I'm just going to do it. So I made an appointment with Gina, and I walked her through the business case and the opportunity for ServiceNow to be part of a solution to what is a very complex problem. And she was very receptive to it. She was like, let's do it. This is a great idea. But then she asked me a question. She says, what's the dollar commitment? And I said, 100 million? And she was like, let's do it. Maybe I should have asked for more, But in any case, she said, let's go to the board, let's get their approval. And the board was overwhelmingly supportive of the 100 million investment. And so within 4 months, we went from concept to deployment. And then by the end of last year, the entire 100 million had been deployed. And so, and we've seen some amazing outcomes. Even I sometimes can't believe it, that it happened in such a short amount of time, but it tells you how much capital is actually needed to make change and to have an impact. So you may be asking yourself, well, I don't work for a company that can make a $100 million investment. And my response to you is this. Ask yourself, how can you make an impact no matter how small? I started by protesting outside in San Jose, it's that direction, I think, in San Jose on Saturday mornings. If you're ready to make an impact, ready to influence change, you can give of your time, you can give of your skills, and yes, you can give of your capital if you have it. But just commit to getting off the sidelines. Because if I can do it, you can do it too. Thank you so much.